Hi, Rabbi Ariel. Welcome to the Noahide Academy podcast for this week.
Hello, Rabbi. Great to see you again.
So, as we are starting your new exciting class next Tuesday evening, 7:30 Israel time, 12:30 in New York, I would like to ask you a couple of questions today. Something that you're going to approach during your class live with the students about the divine indications, which is a fascinating topic that you bring in your course, and the book about specifically the scientific knowledge of the universe that you deal with in chapter 4, and how will the students gain in this class about understanding the tools that the Torah has for the past 3,500 years of proof about whether it's the number of stars in the sky, which we're not going to go delve into, or the form of the planet, the fact that it's round and not flat, or even, and that's what I wanted to ask you today specifically, connecting with this week's Torah portion, which is Noah, everybody knows, and the flood, and that the fish actually were the ones that were protected. So if we would to count the number of fish that there is in the ocean, that would be quite a arduous task to do. So could you bring us just a few examples to our students about this question about how many fish there are in the sea that the Torah addresses as a scientific fact, even before science was actually developed as it is today.
Well, thank you, Rabbi. So I think I want to back up just a moment and explain just a little bit about the divine indications, and because we're specifically talking about chapter 4, which is the scientific knowledge of the universe that's contained in Torah writings, in the Talmud, in the Zohar. And the way this should be viewed is all the evidence that's presented in the book and that's going to be presented in the class is cumulative, meaning we're going to focus on the different building blocks and different types of evidence. And there isn't one piece of evidence that you can look at and say, aha, this is the absolute proof of the Torah's divine origin. The way it's built and the way the Torah presents it is of a cumulative nature. So, like you explained on the divine indications, we have one chapter that's discussing scientific knowledge in various Torah writings, and then there's the prophecies and the transmission system, which we can talk about another day. But specifically regarding the fish, so if we look at this one piece of evidence, what's really important also to understand is that whenever the Torah gives us some type of scientific knowledge, it's not for just the purpose of scientific research. The Torah is we're always finding out things about nature and about the nature of the universe or the animals or the fish as they relate to specific commandments that we were commanded. Now, for example, what is a kosher fish? We know in the Torah, in a few different places, and in the book of Leviticus, everything that we're allowed to eat from the water that's considered kosher is anything that has fins and scales. The Torah says anything that has fins and scales, that is permissible to eat. That would rule out lobsters and shrimp and all sorts of sea creatures. But the Talmud in Masechet Nida asks, in Tractate Nida, asks the question, if you were in the marketplace and you saw a fish that they'd already cut up and it's been filleted, right? Now you can't, I recognize if this fish has fins, if you only see a fish that has scales on it because it's already started to be, cut up, how can I tell if a fish is kosher or not? And the Talmud in Masechet Nida responds with an amazing statement that basically categorizes all of the fish in the sea, and there's hundreds of thousands of different types of species of fish in the sea. And we, even today, I mean, two-thirds of the planet is covered in water, and we haven't been able to research or identify even most of the fish that are in the sea today, even today with modern equipment. And the Talmud comes and says that every single fish that has scales also has fins. So the answer to the question then is if you can identify a fish that has scales on it, that means it's kosher. So why did the Torah have to tell us fins and scales? That's another question. But the point here being remain is that any fish that you find that has scales is kosher. Why? Because it automatically also has fins. Now, Rabbi, let me ask you a question. Did Moses research all the oceans? Did he have submarines? I mean, even today, we don't have the ability to research all the fish in the sea. How can the Talmud know that every single fish in the water, if it has scales, must also have fins? So,
I take the opportunity to mention a small story that one day Rabbi Zusha Mianipoli, he was having bad dreams, and his passed away father was coming in to disturb him in his dreams, and so he didn't know. Every night his father was coming in his dreams and waking him up. So he went to his rabbi and asked him, "What should I do?" He says, "I don't know. Go to ask the Rabbi Gon de Vilna, the big rabbi back in the days in Austria." And he said, "Listen, I don't know the answer. Go and ask Rabbi Zusha." So I went to Rabbi Zusha and asked him the question. "My father is coming in the dreams. How can I figure it out?" He says, "Listen, that's because there's a cross in the place where your father is buried." He says, "There's a cross there." He says, "Okay." So he went there, checked, and there was a cross. He removed it. The next night, he slept like a baby. His father let him be. So next day, he went to the Rav Gon Mevilna and he says, "Listen, Reb Zusha said that there was a cross buried in the gravesite." He says, "Yeah, okay, that was it worked." He says, "So where did he knew Reb Zusha that that's the case?" He says, "Because there's a Gemara, there's a page in the Talmud where it says that if that happens, that's the case. There's a crossing." He says, "Okay." He went, he checked the entire Talmud. There is no such a page in the entire Talmud. So he wrote into the Rebbe and asked him the question. "Listen, I looked the entire Talmud. There is no such a page." He says, "Where did Reb Zusha knew?" He says, "It seems that Reb Zusha knew the answer from where the Talmud knows everything." So obviously, the question that you're asking is that Moses doesn't need to check, because he obviously with a vision of Hashem, he can see all of the details even before they are created.
absolutely, and that's exactly what the Torah Shebaal Peh, the oral law that comes along with the written law, this is information that we were passed from generation to generation along with the written Torah that explains what the different laws, what they mean, and what their specific categorizations and categories are. Because the oral law would not take it upon itself to make a statement, "Oh, don't worry, if you find a fish and it has scales, don't worry, you can eat it." I mean, if the Torah said you're not allowed to eat a fish that doesn't have scales and fins, it would be very difficult to just tell people, "Hey, don't worry about it. If you see scales, it's fine." The only way the Talmud would come and make such a statement is if it had received this type of information from the highest authority, which is from the oral law that accompanied the written law. So, another question I would ask here is if the alternative to the Torah being divine is that people made it up. Now, if somebody's making up this code of laws, why would they risk making such a statement that every fish in the sea that has scales must also have fins, which by the way, we didn't mention, but that is the case. You can research today online, you have infinite access to materials and information. There is no fish in the sea that has scales that we found that doesn't have fins also. So if I was making this up, why would I make such a statement that could very easily be disproved at some point in the future, right? I mean, there could be other lakes and other, rivers and oceans and things that are discovered, and enough that somebody would find today an actual fish that doesn't fall into this category, and then they would say, "Look, you would have eaten something non-kosher. How can you tell me now that this came from the Creator?" So, from an example that's so small, like a statement about the fish in the sea, and this is the type of evidence in the scientific knowledge chapter that deals with that you can deduce, right? There's other types of evidence that are going to be based not just on induction and deductions, like we'll see later on in our lectures and in the book, but this type of evidence comes from a logical deduction, where a person can now, again, if you only have one example like this, then you say, "Okay, fine, they got lucky. They made one statement, they took a risk, they took a gamble, and it worked out for them." But once you start having a dozen of these type of examples, adding up and building up, the reasonable person, the logical person says, "Wait a second, this doesn't make sense that these people know about the animal and the fish and the lunar cycle and the stars, and they just happen to guess all these things right while taking great risk." And that's where really the logical and rational approach comes from, where a person can understand in his mind, wait a second, this isn't something that a human being could have just made up. And that's what we're going to be addressing in detail in the class and the course. This is just one example. But that's how we start arriving at building this rational basis.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Ariel, for this beautiful and profound insights. I'm sure that all the students are going to benefit from your class and to integrate within their own intellectual reasoning the divinity of the Torah that addresses every person. And that's really the goal here, is for every person to think and to know what's God's opinion about the reality, and to be more connected. So I invite everyone to join Rabbi Moyal's class next Tuesday evening at 7:30 Israel time, at 12:30 on the East Coast. Bezat Hashem, the classes are also recorded. For those that cannot access live, they will be able to catch up with the recordings. It will be amazing. Obviously, we're going to put the link for the book that you should acquire. All of the students that are already registered already acquired your book, or most of them in any case. And if you have it, you should have it during the class. If you don't, we're going to provide you a syllabus. After the classes, you're going to receive a PDF from Rabbi Moyal's presentation. You don't want to miss this class. If you're into the study of the Bible, understanding Judaism, and becoming a true servant of Hashem, with reason, not with blind faith, but with reason, you shouldn't miss this class. Thank you, Rabbi Moyal, for being here. And obviously, we're looking forward to see you next Tuesday.
Thank you very much, Rabbi, and Shabbat Shalom to everybody.